Today, my guest is Colin McCullough, and Colin and he's an energy auditor, and he has his own business called All Around Home Performance, and he is in Maine, and but he works elsewhere, he said. So, Colin, thank you so much for being with me today.
Yes, thank you for having me on.
I'm thrilled. I don't know a lot about energy audits, and I have considered it. I told you that before, but I am very curious about that. I'm curious about a lot of things, but energy audits are something that uh, seems like, in my mind anyway, that if you want your house to be more efficient, um, warmer in the winter, cooler in the summer, um, airtight, blah blah blah. Is that accurate? Is that not quite accurate?
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes people hear audit and they think taxes and then they run away screaming and they don't want anything to do with that. Uh, so someone was telling me yesterday, you should say assessment, not audit, because I think that scares people away. Uh,
Syllable.
as Yeah, as an energy auditor, really it's my job to sort of do like a whole house kind of assessment to help make the house more efficient, more comfortable. I like to say, part of my job is to try and make people's energy bills as ridiculously low as possible, which definitely can be done. I mean, I have an old 1915 farmhouse in Farmingdale near Augusta. And so I bought this house in 2021. We bought this house, and I did a lot of work here and really got the energy bills really low. And I put heat pump in, and so it's much more comfortable. So like I've done it at my own house. I got to use my experience at telling other people what to do in my own house. And
You experienced it personally. That's awesome.
yes, yeah, it was great to be able to do that.
Very cool. Do you have solar panels?
I do not. That is at the end. That is my end of my 5-year plan. So, unfortunately, I didn't have $50,000 just sitting in my bank account when we moved into the house to do all of the projects all at once.
Hmm.
And certainly, most of the people that I do energy audits for, they're looking at doing things in stages. I recently got a call from someone who said, I've had like solar people, heat pump people, insulation people come to my house, and like they're all salespeople and they're all trying to sell me what they do. And they said, I just want someone who's independent, who can come in, give me like a roadmap of what I need to do. Like, if I have some money to do some work this year, what can I plan to do next year? Like kind of what makes the most sense? What's the
Mm,
best sequence of it? So that's really what I do.
that's really smart. That's really smart. So you're basically giving someone like a checklist.
I do. Yeah. So usually when I do an energy audit, it takes a couple of hours. I take a lot of pictures, measurements. I do a lot of testing in the house. I check, with the infrared camera. I use the blower door test to see how leaky the house is, how much air leakage there is. So usually takes several hours, and then I write just ridiculously long audit reports. I try to give people a lot of detail. Of specifically what in their house I recommend.
Hmm.
So I'll start with kind of a bullet point list at the beginning of the report that's about a page long. There's some easy stuff in there, the low hanging fruit. There's the sort of the longer term investments there, and so people kind of have it as a punch list that they can go through and kind of do it, take it in stages.
Hmm. Cool.
Unless they got the 50,000 just sitting around and then they want to do everything all at once, then okay, great. But you know, most of us don't have that, so we got to take it in steps.
Indeed, most of us don't. Uh, what did you say? Blower door?
Yeah.
What the what the heck? What's that?
Yeah, well, I'll set it up at conferences and events. Like I was at the Common Ground Fair last year, and I had it set up, and so many people walked past and said, "What is that? What is that thing?" So a blower door, it's a temporary door frame with a fan in it. And so it basically simulates a 20-mile-per-hour wind hitting the house. So it pulls some of the air out of the house. So it's not extreme like a hurricane or a tornado or anything like that. It's just basically, how does your house perform when it's a windy day?
Hmm.
So with the blower door running,
Is that
what's that?
is it like testing to see if the door shakes with the wind and stuff like letting air in?
Uh, well, it's pulling the air out of the house, and then with that running, so I there's a gauge that I can actually measure how much air leakage there is. So like if I come in and do an audit, and then they have a bunch of air sealing and insulation work, then they can have the test done again, and they can actually see how much of a reduction, how much tighter the house is
Hmm.
after all that. So it's useful for that number, but then also with it running, then I can go around with the infrared camera. I can just kind of use my hands and feel like where the air is coming in.
Hmm.
Like I did one this morning, for example, where uh, they had just bought this older house, and the previous owner had flipped it, and they had done a bunch of work to it. They put in new windows, but all around like the wood window trim around the window, especially up above, there was like a half-inch gap, which you couldn't see.
Hmm.
But with the
It was over
blower
the
door
top,
running,
right?
yeah, yeah. So with the blower door running, you could actually feel cold air just like coming straight in around the wood through the walls.
Okay,
And it's like they wouldn't have ever known that
right,
unless they had had the test done. And that's just easy stuff that they can do themselves.
right.
They
Looks
don't have to
great.
pay
Not really
somebody.
airtight.
Yeah.
So we would fail. My house would fail.
Yes. How old is your place?
Oh, not that old. It's like what, 1986?
Yeah.
But it's like settled a lot. And so the door that we use to come in and out, there's like a half-inch gap
Yeah.
that you can see outside. And so the storm door, the heavy one, on the really cold days, the inside hinges have
Yeah.
frost on them.
Ah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
It's
we have a stove and we have a heat pump and we have oil heat.
yeah. Well, not a not a true Mainer unless you have at least three sources of heat, right?
Right? Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, you need it when the doors are not keeping the cold out.
Right.
But okay, that's really cool. And that's good to know. So when you're doing an audit, you're looking at doors, windows, obviously.
Hmm.
What else are you doing?
I'm checking the insulation in the attic. So many times people have never even seen inside the attic, so I'll get a lot of pictures. Yeah, if I see anybody up there, I let them know. If there's any treasures up there, it's great. But really looking for insulation, looking for places where there would be, really significant air leaks. If it's an older house, I'm looking in the walls to see if there's insulation in the walls,
Mm,
down in the basements also. So I'm looking at all of that. Also, I look at the people's heating systems.
mhm,
Like if they have a boiler or a furnace, then I do combustion safety testing. Anytime you do insulation in a house and you tighten the envelope of the house, if there are possibly any combustion issues, like safety issues, then you could actually make that worse by tightening everything up. So before somebody comes in and does all that work, it's important to test everything, make sure everything's okay.
Can you see my eyes?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what? So if you're doing all these repairs, these renovations, but you're not fixing the systems that are already in place, it could be worse. It
Right.
could make it worse. Holy
Yeah.
moly.
But for like with Efficiency Maine, the insulation contractors that work for Efficiency Maine, they're all required to be certified in building science so that they understand things like that. So, they'll come into a house and first thing they'll do is do a combustion test on the heating system before they do anything at all. And it's very confusing to homeowners because they say, well, wait, I want you to do insulation. What are you doing with my heating
Right.
system? It's all connected. You really have to kind of look at it from a whole
Oh my
whole
God.
house standpoint.
That's that's really important to know. Um, we didn't have efficiency Maine come over though. Like, um, yeah, I mean, we just had the solar people come over and we had the heat pump people come over.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, if you had insulation work done, then typically they run the blower door and they do that kind of testing.
Oh, for
If you're
insulation.
going to get insulation, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right then. Phew.
But
Um,
even for something like heat pumps, for example, my experience has been that heat pumps, people will say, "Oh, they don't work in the winter. It's too cold in Maine." That's all I use to heat my house is the heat pump. You can see it right there on the wall. That's all I use. I don't use anything else. But my house is really well insulated and air sealed at this point.
mhm.
And if people have a really old leaky house that's not insulated, then heat pumps might have a more difficult time, trying to keep up when it's really cold out. It's going to it possibly have a harder time. So, before people install heat pumps, then I really think it's a great idea to at least check the insulation and the air sealing, use that blower door test. So, the installers can actually correctly size whatever heat pump gets installed. So they're not putting in something too small or too big.
Okay. Can I ask you a question about the winter running then?
Sure, you got it.
And you can answer me or not answer me. Because I have said that exact same thing. In the winter, it just feels like it's blowing cold air. What temperature do you set your heat pump at?
I keep mine at I set it to 74.
Oh,
So
okay.
sometimes you have to set the temperature higher than what you like would have for a wall thermostat,
Okay.
because like for that heat pump that I have, it's on an exterior wall and the thermostat is actually in the wall unit itself. So that's kind of a colder temperature.
Yeah.
It's sensing like the cold air coming back to it by the time it's heated the house. So sometimes people have to set the thermostat a little bit higher than what you normally would, and that'll keep it like 70 in the house.
Oh, wow. Okay. Because I've been setting it at like 68, 69. And I'm like, why am I so cold? It's
Yeah.
not like a thermostat. It's just I don't
Yeah,
know.
so you have to like trick it a little bit sometimes.
That's
And also, this is kind of getting into the weeds, but also the fan speed as well. How fast the heat pump is running to push the air into the house. Uh, on mine, I usually, like, I have my whole first floor is kind of open. So for me, I have to set the fan speed somewhat higher than normal, just to be able to push the heat all the way throughout the whole floor and get it nice and even. But I'm a giant baby, so like anything below 70 in the winter, like I just start to shrivel up. So
okay.
yeah, I grew up in Maine. I don't understand why I have such a delicate constitution, but that's how it is.
Yeah. But I'm on both ends. Like I don't like it to be really cold and I definitely don't like it to be hot. So Virginia is gonna be like my heat pumps are gonna be running 24/7. Uh
Yeah,
how is your back to that? Is your electric bill really expensive in the winter?
no, no. This winter, my highest electric bill, and that's with everything on it. My highest electric bill was 138 bucks. So when I say part of my job is to have make you have ridiculously low energy
Wow.
bills, that's it.
I
That's
mean, 'cause
one of the
that's an old
things.
farmhouse, you said.
Yeah.
What the hey? I think our electric bill was higher than that, and we have solar panels. I mean, granted, there's not a lot of sun in the winter,
Hmm.
but oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So I'm
Hey,
hoping that
buy oil for heat.
yeah. No, I'm hoping my house is sort of a 5-year project, and the last thing I'm going to do is replace the roof shingles and put the metal standing seam roof on, and then put solar panels on that. So I'm trying to get my energy bills down low enough that I can just do 100% with the panels and have it be a net zero. But for a 1915 farmhouse, it's doable.
Yeah.
I mean, so many like if you see in magazines like net zero houses are very like contemporary, they look awesome, futuristic and everything,
Yes.
but like they don't, a house like that wouldn't fit in here where I live. And so I really wanted to kind of show like to myself really, but then also kind of use it as an example to other people. Like you can take an old house and
Yeah.
get it to that point.
That's
Um,
incredible. Oh my gosh, Colin. That's super cool. And that's really that's good to know. That's really good information. And good job.
thank you.
So I'm very curious, like how did you get into energy auditing?
Sure. I started in 2010 officially as an auditor. For years before that, I like at family Christmas parties. Everyone would like give out scratch tickets for presents, and I was always the one who was like giving out compact fluorescent light bulbs to people and saying, hey, instead of that $10 scratch ticket, you use these and you're going to save like $50 a year and you can buy $50 worth of scratch tickets. And everybody in my family just like, oh my god, roll their
God,
eyes. And
Colin, let it
yes,
go.
yes. So I used to do a lot of like advocacy, tabling and things at events. And then at some point I had heard about an energy auditor and I said, people do that like for a living and get paid for
Wait, I
that?
can
I
make
gotta do
money?
that. Yeah, so I worked as an auditor in Massachusetts for the Mass Save program, the state program there, for 10 years before I moved back to Maine. So I grew up here, but I was in Mass for a long time, and I loved that job as an auditor. I mean, I would have done it for free if I could. If I was independently wealthy, I would have done it for free. And so when I moved up here, I worked for Efficiency Maine for several years. But I really wanted to get back into auditing. I just love that job so much. And so really between doing auditing and also I teach building science at SMCC at the for the building science course there. I help to train people, in what I do.
Right.
And between the teaching and the auditing, I absolutely love it. I'm so glad that I get to do this. I'm so grateful,
I love
really.
that. I mean, I also love that. I hope that you tell the people that you're teaching. I love that you're teaching the next generation, um, because you clearly have a lot of passion for that. Like you just love it, and I hope that that rubs off on them. I hope that they can feel that.
I
Uh,
hope so. Hope so.
yeah, I mean, tell them that you'd do it for free if you could, but because that says a lot. It says a lot to me anyway. So all right, so you're teaching, training, and you're auditing, and you also said that you have some cookbooks and you teach cooking.
Yes. Yeah,
Where do you teach cooking?
I teach cooking classes, healthy cooking classes at Maine General Hospital in Augusta. They actually have a teaching kitchen there. It's fantastic. And so I used to teach a lot of cooking classes at libraries when I lived in Massachusetts, but that's a very different funding source there than here.
Right.
So Maine General, I found out that they offer classes there, and I'm vegan, so I asked them, hey, would you be up for having a vegan teacher, maybe? And so I'm one of 8 teachers that teaches there, and so I get to be the vegan vegan teacher.
Right. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
thinking of my local adult ed classes, and
Yep.
there's like the chocolate class and the bread class and the dessert class and all these other things. And I don't know that there's a vegan cooking class. But so it's I'm guessing it's like that, like learning how to do all kinds of different cooking. And vegan is just one of them. That's so cool. That's really cool. I mean, you're just so community minded. That's excellent. And at a hospital, like that's gotta be like, I'm sure that they can just sort of slide that in as nutrition.
Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of patients who have been at the hospital at some point and you know, are able to do the classes, and all the classes are subsidized by the Alphon Foundation, so they're like 25 bucks, to take a cooking class, which is ridiculously cheap,
Yeah.
compared to if you were, taking it regularly, it'd be more like 60 or 75 bucks a person.
Yep.
Uh, but yeah, when I found out they were doing that at the hospital, I mean, as someone who's I've been vegan for a long time and interested in nutrition, and doctors are not always really down with people being vegan. Nutritionally in nutrition school, they're still teaching stuff that has been disproven for years
Oh,
and
like
years.
if you're not eating animal proteins, you're not getting enough protein and you're not going to be
Yeah,
healthy, and yeah.
yeah. I mean, I'm not withering away here, so
Right. I'm
yeah.
still
So
done.
when I found out that they were having healthy classes at the library or at the hospital, then I came in and interviewed, and I said, "How did you manage to convince them at a hospital to teach healthy cooking classes? Like normally that is not what they do." And
Oh,
they said, "No, Alphonse, they fund everything," and they're very forward thinking that way. So I've been able to teach there, a couple times a month.
that's
It's
awesome.
Yeah, it's been great.
Is it well attended?
They do limit it to like eight to 10 people per class, and but then the classes fill up really quickly. So usually, if I do something like I'm doing a whole Thai series right now, then they will just automatically do like four classes of that same class, four offerings, because they know it's going to fill up really quickly.
Wow. Super cool.
Yeah,
God.
plenty to keep busy.
Yeah. Well, right.
I don't have to tell you that.
Don't we know it? We don't like downtime. Uh that's I love that. And so how do you are you auditing part-time? Are you auditing part-time and then you teach part-time and then you teach cooking part-time?
SMCC, I teach generally 1 day a week, and then KVCC, I'm teaching there in the fall 1 day a week. So that takes up 1 day, and then audits. It's usually I do 2 or 3 a week, and then any other teaching outside of that usually fills up, a day or two. I mean, sometimes I'll get called. Like I went to Islesboro a couple of times in the last 6 months,
Hmm.
where they called me and they said, "Would you be willing to come out here for an entire week and just do as many audits and assessments as you could possibly do?" So
And you
uh,
said, heck yeah.
I said, "Heck yeah, yeah, absolutely." Of course, Islesboro, I'm sure is uh, much more beautiful in the summertime than like at the end of January
Sure.
on an island in Maine. But it has its charms. Yeah.
Oh,
But
wow, that is so cool. And I had a thought and I lost it, but I will get it back, I promise. Um, what what is your favorite thing? Okay. My question was, you must have a template for your report. What did you call it? A ridiculously long report?
yes, my wall of words. Yeah. Yeah.
You have a template that you're just filling stuff in, right?
Uh, I mean, it's like a little mini book every time I like to write. Um, so I have a bit of a format to it in the terms of the different sections,
Mhm.
but every house is unique, and I've seen other audit reports like in other states, that I've been to, where it really is just more like a template,
Mhm.
where they use a lot of stock photos, and it's like, I mean, even what I used to give people in Massachusetts working for the program there was a lot of stock pictures and language and things. And in the reports that I write here, I usually take about 100 pictures at every audit that I do. So when I say you should get insulation here, I will show the pictures in your house exactly where I'm talking about.
Right.
And while I'm there, I will have the homeowner go around with me and I'll show them. I'll kind of do some show and tell, especially like with the blower door running, and it makes all the air leaks in the house, very apparent.
Hmm.
So, it's one thing for me to say like, hey, that pull down stairs going into the attic, that pull down ladder, there's a lot of air leakage there. And then, people will say, yeah, okay, okay. But when I run the blower door and they're standing right under it and it's like a tornado in their face,
Oh,
and they're like, wow,
wow.
there's a lot of air leakage there.
How do we
Yeah.
not know that?
Yes.
Wow. That's wow. And so, I mean, you literally, you have it, you just have like an outline and everything else you fill in. So 20 something pages you're writing for every audit.
Yeah, actually, this is an audit that I did today. I just take a bunch of notes and then, I pull all the pictures into it and start putting everything together. And then it's just, one house to the next is so different. Like I did when I was teaching at SMCC this last semester, we did several in-field audits with the class so they could see, what it is that I do out in the field. And so the first house we came to was a 1915 bungalow in South Portland with almost no insulation. And that report was like 17 pages with, so many different recommendations. But the second audit we did was 2012 ranch.
Hmm.
And that was a longer report with more
Oh,
recommendations for a
interesting.
house that was only 12 years old.
Right. Well,
So
I mean, I guess I can, I mean, I don't want to rip on people, but I would think that things are just not made the way that they used to be. I mean, I hear that a
yeah,
lot, appliances and stuff like that. Everything is very shiny, but is it meant to last?
yeah. Yeah. Well, they had the more recent house was a modular house. So it was assembled and brought on site and put in sections. And, from an efficiency standpoint, they're in pretty decent shape. But, again, like if you're trying to get to that point where you have no bills or ridiculously low energy bills, then there's still a fair amount to do, but like there's really good rebates for all of that work that gets recommended. Uh, one thing that I've really been getting into recently is, I'll do my report, I'll do my audit, I'll write out the report, I'll email that to the homeowner. If they have any questions, they can talk to me. But so many people will get these long reports and say, I don't know where to start. Like who do I like what contractors do I call? And so I'm an independent energy auditor. I don't work for anybody else.
Right.
I don't get like commissions or finder's fees or anything from contractors. So when I'm recommending, the best choice for your house is going to be heat pumps, I'm not making any money from that. I don't install it. I don't put them in. It's none of that.
Right.
Um, so, but what I've been doing more recently is, I'll do the audit, send the report, and then I'm offering basically consulting at that point and saying, if you know contractors and you know people who can do this work and you want to do that, great, absolutely, have at it, absolutely. But for the people who don't know who the contractors are that they would call and they want help with that, or even if they just want reminders like an occasional call or email and say, hey, just checking in, you got that list, how are we doing with the list, you need any help, you need me to make any recommendations? And then at that point I can connect people with the contractors that I know.
Right.
And then I work with a number of different contractors on that consulting side who like there's a solar contractor that I work with who they usually will give auditors and other people like a finder's fee, like a commission. And so I say to the solar company, don't give it to me. I'm consulting for the homeowner. Give it to the homeowner. That couple of $100, just give it to the homeowner. And that just like uh, just pays them back for the consulting work that I do. So I like to, kind of do that hand holding
Yep.
with a homeowner. I mean, I can write a 20-page report and I have a great time doing it, but unless the homeowner actually takes action and actually does that work, then I mean, it's not useless, but the most important thing is that homeowners
Do it. Yeah.
actually do it, take the action. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes they need a little bit of a word that I can't think of right now. They need a little encouragement, like financial encouragement. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, and the the rebates that are offered, the tax rebates are really,
Mhm.
really helpful.
Yeah, and it can be a maze trying to navigate all of the rebates. There's the state, there's the federal rebates. Depending on what the income level is,
There are
then there are
federal
different.
rebates?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, for heat pumps, for insulation, for solar, all of that. So you must have got the solar rebate though, right? The
I
30% federal tax credit or
I don't
whatever it was at the time.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it was 8 years ago. I don't I don't remember breakfast yesterday. That's really cool. So, I mean, you could get a rebate from state and federal.
Yes. Yep.
Oh. Okay. Uh, so, um, this is really, really interesting. I mean, an audit is so much more than you think. I mean, I like when I was saying, just to make it airtight and whatever, I was just thinking of sealing things up. I didn't realize that like it could affect your current systems, like the furnace or whatever.
Hmm.
Uh, and I did not know that there was a federal rebate, but
For some things, not for everything, but for
right.
some things there are. Yeah.
Uh, but that,
Federal rebates or tax credits.
yeah, that's really awesome. Yeah, yeah, tax credits. Um, I think I'm sad that I didn't know what an energy auditor did. I guess you were saying there aren't a lot. There aren't a lot in Maine,
Correct.
a
Yep.
lot in Massachusetts, but it's just not something that people really know about, I think. So let's get that word out. So was there a specific message that you wanted to share about energy auditing and sustainability? Like, I mean, I know you pretty much did it in sort of a roundabout way, but
Yeah. Um, I think, well, why don't we take this approach? So when I used to work for Efficiency Maine, then I knew that a lot of the rebates that they offer for insulation and for heat pumps and so they don't offer rebates for oil or propane or anything. It's really specifically for heat pumps,
Mhm.
and they're trying to incentivize people to weatherize their house to have a much more efficient house, so they don't need a ton of heat pumps.
Right.
So really, their sort of background, like what's driving it, really is whole house electrification. They're trying to get people to move away from using fossil fuels.
Mhm.
And especially in Maine, we have some of the oldest housing stock in the nation. We use more home heating oil than most other states. I mean, if you go to other parts of the country, they think that we are bizarre and crazy that we use like diesel fuel to heat our house. It's bizarre. Um, so
And are you talking about like Kentucky is they think that we're crazy because I mean, they also don't get the cold that we do.
right, right, yeah. I mean, or like if you go southwest, down in the southwest, like you heat your house with what? It's bizarre. Uh, so efficiency Maine, like this is the driving thing behind behind their approach and the governor's energy office is whole house electrification. But like homeowners don't know what that is. You never read about that in the paper. It sounds sort of scary almost. And so like that's one thing, like I go to the sustainability conferences and the climate conferences, and there's all of this great policy work in the state that's getting done to try and promote sustainability and renewables and all of that. So there's like the top down kind of policy that's being created. And
Right.
then there's homeowners who, you know, don't, it's not our job as homeowners to know all this stuff, right? Like who can keep up with all of this stuff happening? So it's like you have, these two things here, and the energy auditors, the realtors, but really especially the energy auditors, like we are the connective tissue
Right.
between the policy. Like we are the ones sitting at people's kitchen tables and looking at their electric bill and saying, here's what you can do in your own house.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, I feel like in the policy, like a lot of, they don't really, I don't think they really consider so much like how it's eventually going to get to the homeowner. And
Mhm.
so, like, I'm at these conferences, like,
Lay
jumping up
at
and
'em.
down from
I
the
want to tell
bleachers saying,
everyone.
it's
Shout it
us,
from the rooftops.
it's us. That's what we do.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really great way to think of it though. Like you have all the information. You're getting this information from the leaders and the government and the products. All about all the products and the laws and all that
Yeah,
stuff. And you get to bring that to these people and explain it in a way that they understand.
yeah,
uh,
yep.
which is so important because yeah, like you said, we don't know. I mean, I was telling you before we started recording that about my well water and our well pump, that we didn't know we needed to test our water every year, and we didn't know that we needed to check the pressure in the well pump. And 18 years later we're finding these things out. um I feel like there should be a book for homeowners.
Yes.
Legit.
Or at least like an owner's manual for your house,
Yes.
right? That tells you here are all the things that you need to do every year. Here are the filters you need to check. Here's the maintenance you need to do.
Right. And
Yeah,
then have the septic pumped every, so many years, depending on how many people are living there
yeah,
and stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, that would be really helpful. But
Well,
as far as, electrification, that is where you have like this power that people don't know. Like it's access to the all the information that
mhm.
we should know, we could know, but we don't know, but we need to know. We need to learn from you. You're the person that we need to tell it, because there are so many ways. There are so many ways to tighten up your house and to change the systems and whatever, but which is the right one?
Right, right.
And that's where
Well,
you
yeah, and it's great too because I'm not trying to sell anything. Like I said, I'm an independent auditor, so that gives me an opportunity to talk about these things, and people can ask me questions because I'm not trying to sell them anything. I don't have any vested interest in them doing it, except it's what I want for the planet, and
right.
for all of us to be much more efficient, more comfortable. I'll come to homeowners who have pay thousands and thousands of dollars to heat their house every winter, and they're still cold in the house even though they paid all that money. And I mean, I can't imagine paying thousands of dollars for heat. I don't have that kind of money to spare. I
Right.
like my $138 electric
Close.
bill
Yeah.
to keep my house nice and toasty.
Right.
But so many times though, like the house that I grew up in Maine, we didn't have central heating.
Hmm.
We just had the wood stove, and then we froze in the bedrooms at night. That's just like what you do. And same with my wife. She, in the house she grew up with, didn't have central heating. So like, there's so many people in Maine who they just grew up like that, and it's normal
Hmm.
to them. And then if you once you actually live in a house where the heating is really consistent and it's really well insulated and air sealed and it's just comfortable all the time in the summer and the winter, then I mean, so many people have just never even experienced that. So they don't know, so they don't even know that they should have that, you
Yeah,
know?
right. Well, and then and also, if you have a wood stove or fireplace or whatever,
Mhm.
it's like hot or cold.
Yes. Yeah, you bake in the room that the wood stove is in, and then you freeze in the rest of the
Right.
house,
But then
right?
you get in, with the heat pump or whatever, you're like, this is like the right temperature all the time. It's very weird and it's quiet
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's not dirty.
Yeah,
So
and
when you were talking about electrification, I feel like I'm like so close to being on board. Like I want that as well, but I think about um like, was it last week or 2 weeks ago that Houston was out without power for a week?
yeah,
And we were just listening to a podcast episode about that, and about how everyone's trying to figure out what to do about that because it's also 100 degrees there and
mhm,
humid as anything.
yep,
So what do you do if everything is electric and then
mhm.
you lose power?
Well, that's, a big part of whole house electrification is the insulation and the air sealing and the house getting the envelope, in much, much better shape. So, like for example, there are some really great high efficiency home builders and designers in the state of Maine.
Mhm.
I mean, we're colder than many other parts of the country, so we have to be smarter about that. And there are some great builders here in the state who, new houses that they build, they're super insulated, super air sealed. They got solar panels that, all they use is heat pumps. They don't even install anything else. All they have is heat pumps. And they will say, if your house is really well insulated and air sealed, then if we have a cold snap like we did last year where it was, negative 20 degrees for a day, then in a house like that, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I mean, they built a thermos. And that's like what I've tried to do is essentially turn my house into a thermos
To hold
here.
on to whatever temperature is inside.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, valid. I mean, I can say that because my house is not warm, but or tight. But it's just something that's where my head goes. What
Yeah.
happens when we lose power because electricity is it's all power. I mean, that's, you know, um and I was also thinking about when we were listening to the podcast episode about Texas losing power. And, when it does get really hot, everyone's using their air conditioning and it's just
Yeah.
blaring um, and then they lose power and they're just like SOL, right? I was like, what if I know that in Connecticut, at least where my grandparents lived in Connecticut, the power lines are underneath.
Mm.
Like,
Yeah.
sure that would be a huge undertaking, but to have people not lose power in like it seems like whenever my house loses power, it's like midsummer, like it's a summer evening, like there's no
Yeah.
weather, it's
Yeah.
random. But I don't know, I'm trying to figure out like what I guess in my head it seems like whatever the temperature is outside, it's gonna get inside, but that's because my house is not tight, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Yep. Well,
what if it's a week and it's so cold out?
right. Well, another part, I mean, ultimately for whole house electrification, if you can do it, then that's when, like, if you have heat pumps, if you have a heat pump water heater, if you have an induction stove, like if your house is all electric, then that's where solar makes a ton of sense. It's going to pay back really quickly if everything's electric in your house.
Totally.
And so one thing that I talk about with people in conjunction with solar is you can put in batteries now that make a lot more sense. It's not like the old lead acid batteries, like you had to water your batteries. It's, ridiculous. Nobody wants to do that. So there are modern batteries that you can use that essentially act as a generator. So even if even if you don't have power from the grid, then like a friend of mine has a couple of batteries and it stores about 3 or 4 days worth of power at a time. So if the power goes out, then he just keeps running cranking. He's fine.
Okay. I mean, was that I'm trying to remember when we had our solar panels put in, that wasn't I don't think that that was an option, or maybe they asked us if we wanted that.
Yeah, no, it's more within the last 5 years. And so the batteries are expensive, and it's essentially what they'll use in an electric car, the car battery. And so it's not like a perfect solution yet.
Mhm.
Um, they're expensive, and like with the EV batteries, there's minerals that are mined from the earth that, it's problematic. So I say, let's use those minerals for the car batteries so that it'll incentivize better development. I'll tell people, like the compact fluorescent, spiral bulbs that everyone was using 15 years ago, those had some mercury in them. So, like, those were always meant to be like the bridge technology to from a really old incandescent, super inefficient bulb to like the next generation. So now we have LEDs, and that's all most of us are using at this point. You can't even buy incandescents from the store now for the most part. And so like the battery, that's where batteries are right now, is it's like they're the CFLs of battery,
Okay.
where we need to invest in that in order to get to like the LED of batteries that
Right.
make more sense.
Sure. Okay. Um, so you brought up the the heat pump water heat the yeah, heat pump
Yep,
water heater.
yep,
And I remembered I'm glad that you said that because I said that I was going to ask you about that and I had forgotten about it. So tell me about the heat pump water heater.
sure. Yep. So it's one of the most energy efficient options on the market right now. Uh, you know, an electric hot water heater, like a standard electric hot water heater, it's pretty much the most expensive possible way you can heat hot water right now. But a heat pump water heater, it's also electric, but it's really meant for like an unfinished basement, like a boiler room or furnace room or something, where it's pulling some of the heat from the air in the basement, and it uses that to heat the hot water rather than like an electric coil on the inside. So just like a heat pump for your house is much more energy efficient than electric baseboard,
Right.
then the heat pump water heater is kind of that version of it.
Right. And so looking at your website, it said that it also, and probably because it's taking the heat from the room, it's a dehumidifier as well.
Yeah, it also does some dehumidification as well.
Just like the
Um,
heat.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
So Efficiency Maine's got a really amazing rebate for that. It's like after the rebate, it's like $350. It's like one of the cheapest hot water heaters you can get at this point. It doesn't even in a lot of cases it doesn't make sense to not do it. If you live like in a condo or something where you don't really have a unfinished basement or something, then it's a little harder to do. But if you got an unfinished room in the basement, then great, works great,
Hmm. And
much
do
cheaper.
you have one in your house?
I don't yet because I have that 5-year plan.
Right.
And so I've super insulated the walls, the upstairs of my house, and really the last section to tackle is the utility room in the basement to really super insulate that. And
Uh,
then once I've done that, then I'll do the heat pump water heater.
And so the heat pump water heater, is that like instant hot water?
No, it's a storage tank. It's usually like a 50-gallon storage tank, which is going to be similar to whatever people have anyway.
Okay.
And so it just draws off of the storage when you need it.
Okay. Cool. All right. And so I just wanted to touch on just really quickly your cookbooks. What are your cookbooks called, Colin?
So the main book that I wrote is the Healthy Vegan Cookbook. And so I believe that was 2017 that was published. So that's on Amazon. So I wrote that, and that is like as comprehensive a cookbook as I could write. There's over 200 recipes in that. I love to use my blender a lot. So I have a Vitamix blender, and I make,
Use
you
it.
know,
It's
all kinds of stuff with that.
use
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, well, even like a NutriBullet or a Ninja, like you can use something like that, and that'll work as well. So I like to make a lot of sauces and smoothies, and anytime I could get my kids to eat healthy food, and then ask for seconds and thirds, yes, okay. So keep that recipe,
Right?
modify what I need to.
Heck.
Yes, or like healthy desserts that I have a chapter in the cookbook where, uh, you know, if the dessert is really healthy and my kids, would come home, at the end of the day and be like, "What's for dinner?" I need a snack. And so like if I can just pull stuff out of the freezer, like energy bites and things like that, if it's healthy, then like why not have it for a snack?
Right,
You can have it for breakfast. Like it's healthy, it's good for you.
right.
So that's the main cookbook. And then I also wrote smoothies that taste like Girl Scout cookies
Oh,
as
no.
well. Yeah. So using whole food, healthy ingredients, but
Oh
trying to
my.
mimic the taste of Girl Scout cookies.
Oh. I'm writing this down.
Yeah, putting the blender to use, definitely.
Ah, I love that. Sweet. My next cookbook is going to be smoothies.
Well,
Oh my gosh, that's really cool. This has been so fascinating, Colin, and I've learned a lot, and I'm excited for my new house.
yes.
I'm gonna get all tricked out someday. But
Can you take your solar panels with you?
I don't think I can.
Maybe
I'm
in the
just gonna
middle of the night.
pack
What's
them up
that
and
noise
put
on
them
the
on the
roof?
truck. No. But I um I talked to this guy. Um we talked to this guy a couple of months ago with
Okay.
Solar Pro, I think, and he was saying you can lease solar panels
Yes.
and
Yep.
just have
That's
them.
another way to do it. Hmm.
So I think I'm gonna be doing that unless I get a super, super cheap house and I can afford to just put them on. But
Yeah.
that's not.
Another another thing that solar companies will do a lot of times now is um, like they will work with third party financing, and they will essentially what they'll try to do is whatever they'll try to get your loan payment to be about the same as what your electric bill is.
Mhm.
So in the end, you're not actually spending anything more.
Right,
And then, so you pay 5 or 7 years after, with the rebates and everything, it pays for itself. And then you own the panels after that. And it's just all gravy after
right.
that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's pretty much where we were. Um, except in the winter we were paying double because the solar panels weren't making a lot of electricity and without the sun.
Yeah.
But but it's so cool once they're paid off and your electric bill in the summer is just the carrying fee, like $13 a month.
Yes.
That is pretty darn sweet. But I was really excited to hear about the leasing. That's pretty cool.
Mhm.
Um, and then
A friend of mine is a high efficiency designer architect, and she will go to events where she has a big sign of one of the houses that she designed, and she'll have a little poster next to it that says, "This house costs $13 a month to live in," and it's 13 bucks because that's how much CMP charges you to
mhm,
connect to the grid.
mhm,
But, like I said, it's super insulated, air sealed. It's only heat pumps. That's all they use, and then solar panels on the roof.
Right.
It's $13 a month for your energy bills. That's
Right.
it.
Yeah. 100%. Uh, yeah. So, I mean, this is, I'm so glad that we hooked up and I could learn this from you because this is like, I think I was telling you, I was like, oh, energy audit, that would be really cool. But I don't, and I personally, I was like, that would be really cool to know what was needed. At the same time, I was scared to know that it was so much. But you were saying that's why you do the list. These are the things that you can do, start where you can because
Mhm.
you've already done like without all these things. So you're not gonna get worse. But
Right.
if you tackle one thing and then and then you'll be saving more money the more you're taking you're checking off of your list. You'll be saving more money and it'll be easier to get to the next thing.
Yeah.
And so that's really interesting. And I think a lot of people should maybe participate and take advantage of that. Anyway, Colin, when I say the word sustainability, what does that mean to you?
Uh, so there's a couple of different ways I can answer that. I wanted to ask you, are you familiar with Cradle to Cradle, William McDonough,
No.
the book? So this was really one of the first times that I, really read about sustainability. This book came out, oh geez, maybe 15 years ago or
Okay.
so.
Maybe that.
Um, yeah, he's definitely comes from the standpoint of design. That he says, like in nature, there's no waste, and as humans, we're very wasteful in our lives. And he says, it's really more from a design standpoint of when products are designed. There's nobody that's pushing the manufacturers to make things in a healthy and like closed loop system. So if
Okay.
they sell you something, they're not responsible to take it back when you're done with it. So it's like they sort of externalize the costs of whatever you do with it, you throw it away, and it's not their problem as
Right.
the manufacturer.
Right.
Um, so he started working with different manufacturers and said, like, what if you made this product in a way that wasn't not just like unhealthy or not just sustainable where you got to where it wasn't doing any harm, but how about like if you actually designed this product that it was like food for the earth, once you
Mhm.
were done with it, that it could be recycled infinitely. Um, so, he talks a lot about that, but then he also says, he sort of challenges that idea of sustainability and says, how you live your life, if you're just trying to like do less harm and do less bad, and like that's your goal is sustainability, where like you get to zero. He's
Right.
like, well, but what if you lived life in a way that, it makes it
Actually make
better?
things better. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm a big fan of his. He's written a couple of books, so I'm a big fan of that. So that's one answer, and I would say, working on the islands, especially in a place like Islesboro, where it's not a bridged island, you have to take a ferry to get there.
Mhm.
That's been really eye-opening for me because, from a sustainability standpoint, from a resilience standpoint, um, it's in their face a lot more than it is for us on the mainland.
Right.
Like Islesboro, for instance, uh, if you haven't been there before, it's a really long, skinny island, and there are about 800 people who live there all year round, and then another 800 for the summer. But right in the middle of the island, there's a really narrow section that the road goes through, and this last December with the storms, it washed out. So it cut half of the island off. They couldn't get to the other half. And so, just from a sustainability, resilience standpoint, they have to face that more seriously. It affects them more.
Totally.
And, also, like, especially for all the people who live on Islesboro who, use oil to heat, they have to pay
to have that shipped
a
in.
truck to come over on a ferry to deliver that oil. So of course it's going to be super expensive.
Yeah.
Whereas, they are trying to get grants to do a microgrid for solar and put in as many panels as possible on the island so that they can just produce all of their own power. And then if everybody has heat pumps, that's part of like what I'm trying to help with is doing a lot of energy assessments and audits there so that people can move in that direction.
That's an
And
amazing project.
yeah, and it's great because there are Democrats there are Republicans, and they'll fight about everything else, but when it
They're all
comes
the same.
to sustainability, like everybody's paying the same huge amount of oil bills and all of that, and so like they recognize that these kind of things are really important for them,
Mhm.
just to be able to stay there and be able to make a living there. So
Right.
it's been really, really interesting. It's a very closed knit, kind of close knit community there, and everybody knows each other.
I love
Could
that.
be, it
That's
can be good and bad, but
right. I know that's really cool though. I mean, it doesn't matter your background or whatever. Like it's just you're doing this for the good and so that you can stay where you are. They're just they must be just super exposed. I don't think I have been to Islesboro. Is that near Gouldsboro?
have you been to Vinyl Haven before? Like off of the coast of Rockland, Camden?
No.
Okay, so Islesboro is right next to
Oh,
Vinyl Haven, very close by.
okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So sustainability for you is not necessarily breaking even, but let's do better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like to try. I mean, that's everybody's on a journey, and I'm not perfect. I do a fair amount of traveling, and I wish I had an electric car that I could zoom all over the state in, but I got a little Prius, and that gets me around.
Way there, hybrid man.
Yep,
Uh, that's awesome. Did you happen to listen to the episode that I did with Merge Impact?
didn't. No, no. I heard the last one was the sustainable author that did the ebooks.
Debbie, yes.
Yes, yeah, that
Uh,
was the last one I listened to.
okay. I did an episode with Merge Impact, and they're out of Illinois and Minnesota, I think. And they work with farmers to make farming more sustainable, like to tweak their practices to not need to like add in biodiversity
Hmm.
um and just not like the chemicals and the pesticides and stuff like that so that they're creating healthier food and not depleting the soil as much and then we're getting better food to eat and we're getting better nourished.
Yeah,
So
fantastic.
yeah, they're amazing, and they're so, like, data geeks, which was so over my head. I mean, they said the same thing probably 7 times, and I was like, "Can you say that ag one more time?" But, I mean, that's sort of the gist of what they were doing, and when I asked them, what the word sustainability meant to them, Beth, she's the one from Minnesota, she was like, "I don't like that word. We need to do better." Like, I don't
Yeah,
want things to stay the way that I don't want them to sustain. We need to do better. And that was, that you reminded me of that um by saying that and I appreciate that. I'm all in for that.
yeah.
Um but so and we were talking about this. There's not really a great way to find you. You're not on social media really, but you are available on Google and you have a website.
Yes, I do. Yeah,
So your website is
it's allaroundhp.com. I'm also on the vendor list for Efficiency Maine to do audits, so I get, that's where I get a lot of calls from. So my two boys are now 21 and 24. I always have to like think for a minute at this point. And so they love to harass me and tell me, Dad, you have to post on social media. I- Yeah, I know, I know.
yeah, I
I'm not so good
do,
about that.
but I'm still not. It's cool. I mean, we can find you on Google. That's cool. And I'm gonna put the your website in the show notes. And gosh,
Thank you.
I appreciate this so much. And I'm also gonna put in this the Cradle to Cradle book. Who's the author again?
It's William McDonough.
William McDonough. Okay. I'll put that in the show notes as well, because that sounds fascinating. Um, so anyway, folks, uh I highly recommend checking in with an energy auditor if you have any concerns about your house being efficient. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out to Colin.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for so much for sharing all this. This is just really fantastic and so important.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for having me on. It's amazing to listen to the show and then I'm on
Oh my gosh. I'm on Grounded in Maine.
it.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.